Heavenly Father, we thank you for being our God. We thank you, Lord, for your faithfulness and for your goodness. We thank you for your mercy and grace. We thank you for this morning, this beautiful morning. I pray that it wouldn't be too hot today, Lord. Please bring in some thunderstorms and some cool weather. I pray, Lord, that you would prepare our hearts for this chapter, prepare our hearts for what it is that you have for us, Lord, in everyday life, in marriage, in church, in life. We want to walk and live according to your will, Lord. And I pray that as we go through this book, that those who are seeking purity would learn how to walk in your will, the will of purity, the will of walking and holding their vessels in honor. So I pray that you would have your way this morning. In Jesus' name, we pray. So, as you can tell, the name of this chapter is called The Fairytale Lie. And I named it that appropriately. One of my big issues with our culture, particularly it's the American culture, I can't speak for the rest of the world because I don't know how they view things, but there's this misconception about love in our culture, and the misconception is that there's this one and only, and this one and only, if you miss your one and only, you miss your shot, you miss your moment, you miss everything that God intended for you. And I really believe that this idea has really tarnished relationships, marriages. I believe it's ruined marriages. As we go, you're gonna see what I mean. I believe this idea has really been a disservice to our culture, and wherever this idea has been set. And you're gonna see why here in a moment. But let's start up. If you grew up in the wonderful world of Disney, 1937 to essentially today, then it's likely that you have bought into the lie that they've been selling us for almost a century. In 1937, Disney released the classic film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Although there are some quality moral lessons throughout the film, there is one major setback: true love's kiss. For the sake of fairy tale movies, true love's kiss is sweet, it's heartwarming. It's, the idea of true love is exciting. The idea of true love is exhilarating. It's just, who doesn't want that? I mean, who doesn't want that one and only, that one that God made just for me? It's exciting. It's about a princess who is put into servitude by an evil stepmother, and along the way she's poisoned. Poised. It's supposed to be poisoned. Sorry, you can scratch that out. Who's poisoned by her evil stepmother. I don't know why I put poised. I don't know. But by her evil stepmother being put under a spell and never again to wake up. And the only way the spell can be broken is by true love's kiss. At which point, Prince Charming comes in, her true love, and he saves her. The issue that I take with this notion of true love is that it sets in the heart of the viewers that there is a one and only true love for you and for me, while any and everyone else is just a means to that end. I understand how exhilarating it is, the idea of there being a one and only perfect person for you. Again, this is where we're going to see some of the biggest fallacy, this idea that this perfect person exists, that this person that's molded just for us. And you're going to find that, again, the fallacy in there is deep. The problem with the fallacy is that it almost sounds biblical. And it's almost churched up and Christianized so that it appears to be this good thing. But again, as we read, we're going to see why it's not a good thing, why it's a bad thing. This idea almost stopped me from marrying my wife. I should have probably expanded more right there, but I didn't because I'm going to talk about it more later. But as we sit down and actually analyze this idea of a one true love, we're going to find that it's riddled with issues. And at the end of the day, it does us great disservice to hold this view in our minds. As we dig into this chapter, we're going to look at some very specific things, like why Disney's idea of a one true love is a bad thing. What is love? How do I love? And how will I know my somebody when I meet them if they're not my one and only? Now again, I'm really going to expand on when I said it almost stopped me from marrying Stephanie. Because it did. I almost didn't marry her because of this idea. And again, I'm going to expand. And as I continue to read, hopefully you get what I'm saying. Because what I don't want you guys to do is I don't want you to walk into life with this idea. This falsehood, this false bill of sale that sells you something that doesn't exist. And again, and it's kind of like drugs. The problem with drugs is people chase a high, and they spend their whole lives chasing a high that they're never going to catch. And when drugs, you get a glimpse of that feeling. And that's why they keep chasing high. Every time they get high, they get just a glimpse of that euphoria. And this is very much the same thing. And so many people spend their lives chasing this high only to end up alone and miserable. You might be wondering, why is hoping for a one true love a bad thing? Finding someone who is perfect for you sounds like a great find. Imagine finding that somebody who loves you unconditionally, looking past all your flaws, who showers you with every little thing that you hope for and desire, who's ready to serve you hand and foot in any and in all cases, who's stunning in the looks department and who will be 100% loyal and faithful to you. Let's turn it up a notch. Let's make it spiritual. What's wrong with finding somebody who holds all your same theological views, who will completely submit to you and never give you an ounce of issue or grief about it, who will be exactly like Jesus in every way towards you? Your true love, the perfect fit whom God made just for you. Not that some of these, or even many of these qualities can't be present in a potential spouse. Some of them should absolutely be present. However, perfection is not an option. And that's the problem with the idea. It's this idea of a perfect, of this thing that's exactly for me. God molded, God shaped, God given, and it fits every requirement in my heart. Nothing lacks. The unfortunate reality is we're all sinners. Because of sin, our bodies are undergoing decay, and the corruption therein is daily taking a toll on us. The issue of sin keeps us from being perfect, and it's the exact reason that we are also desperately in need of a Savior. Disney, however, has painted us this picture that there is someone out there who is created just for you. Almost as if to say the entirety of their life purpose is to find you and to be with you. And when that day comes, it will be perfection at its finest. It will be true love. You'll never argue or fight. You'll never have issues of any kind. It'll be 24/7 bliss as long as you two are together. Isn't that how Disney and Hollywood paints us that picture, right? When you meet true love, it's a natural flow. It's progression that comes from the heart, and it's this never-ending euphoria. And as long as you're with your true love, then, Hollywood at least has dipped on that idea, and they've come to the idea that you fall in love with somebody till you fall in love with somebody else, and then somebody else, and then there's always this somebody else. And actually, they have a better stance, I think, than the Disney lie, because at least that one they're being honest, kind of. And I'm not going to get down that path. I was going to say something, but they tell you that true love is all you need, and with it you'll conquer the world, and the two of you will live happily ever after. It's this very idea that has kept wonderful people from getting married. Even worse, it's this idea that has led many well-fit couples to the slaughterhouse of divorce. One argument takes place, rather than working it out, we throw our hands up in defeat and say things like, I deserve better. Marriage isn't going the way you think, and you're out. I deserve better. I don't deserve to be treated like this. I don't deserve to be talked to like that. I don't deserve, and oftentimes we simply escalate the reality of what's going on. Not always. There's bad marriages. I'm not saying there's not. What I'm saying is when you have a good marriage next to a fantasy perfect marriage, the good marriage will never add up. This is the same problem we find with pornography. You want to know why pornography is so detrimental? It's because it's not real. That's really the issue with porn. It's not real. None of you girls or guys, none of us will ever live up to porn, ever. And if porn is a standard in our minds of what love is, of what sex is, you're always going to walk. It's a lie. It's fake. It's photoshopped, so to speak. It's not true. This is why it destroys women to such degrees, because you're trying to live up to something that doesn't exist. It's a movie. That's what pornography is. It's a film. It's a script. And it's taken after dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of takes. It's not real. But you think it's real, as it's supposed to be. And so we take this and we take it into marriage, we take it into relationships, we take it into life, and it only prohibits us and it hinders us and it keeps us from being the potential that God has called and created us to be. This is the same concept of this lie. You're taking something that is a fantasy, this fantasy of perfection, and putting it next to the real thing. The real thing will never live up That's why it's so important that we're grounded in reality and that we have a proper view. Excuse me. A proper view of what God has set before us, of what a man is, of what a woman is, of what a relationship looks like, of what a marriage looks like. So again, we throw our hands up and we say things like, I deserve better. For all intents and purposes, there is a one true love. Disney just got it very wrong. Our one true love doesn't appear in basic human form, but in the form of God. 1 John 4:8 says, God is love. He is true love, the definition, the essence, the reality. All love apart from him is tainted, flawed. It's not good apart from him, because he is love. The poison behind Disney's idea of a one true love is that it puts you at the center of the universe. It's no longer about the will of God or what's good for you. Rather, it becomes this never-ending pursuit of perfection. Again, when my wife Stephanie and I had gotten engaged, it was an extremely exciting time of my life. In my mind, I played through scenario after scenario of what married life was going to be like. Thought about all the kinks and quirks and, getting to sleep in the same bed, hold hands and kiss and even make love. And we thought about everything I did. And I was just excited about it. I was like, I'm going to be married to my best friend. I meant to have something put here. I'll put it later. But the more I thought about it, the more I considered it, all of a sudden doubts started pouring in. And the thought of my one true love came to the forefront of my mind. Now, in my heart, I really did believe Stephanie was as perfect as a person could get for me. When I prayed, we talked about this, the flesh list, and when I prayed to God for the spiritual list of the things that I wanted, she really met every single qualification and then some. I have like a massive phlegm. It feels like in my throat. Sorry. But, yeah, please, if you would, just a little cup right there. But when I prayed for a wife, when I prayed for the things that mattered, my wife really did have them. She had everything that I could have hoped for. But again, when we got engaged and I started contemplating all these things, when I started considering marriage, and like none of it was bad, but I started to think about my one true love. Like, is this it? Is she really it? Is this the one that God made for me? That really did help. As I continued considering, the overwhelming thought that I had cultivated for so many years of my life came flooding through my mind, and I began to wonder, well, what if there's someone out there that's better for me? I mean, I really thought she was it, but what if I'm wrong? What if there's things that I'm not seeing? All the what ifs started taking place in my mind, and I started really considering, like, what if she really isn't the one? And what if I just think she's the one because I really want to be married? One of my big fears in entering marriage is I didn't want to marry a concept. I didn't want to marry, I didn't want to marry an idea. And I think a lot of people enter marriage marrying an idea rather than a reality. We have this idea in our mind of what marriage is supposed to be like, of what it's going to be like. We have this idea of our whole life planned out, and the truth is, when life happens, nothing ever happens the way we plan, or rarely, I should say. That's why we have that old adage, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. Because often your plans aren't what God has in mind for you. The Bible says we make plans, but God directs our steps. I might not say it in those exact words, but that's the essence of that proverb. And it's the truth. We have our plans all stretched out, and it's good to plan. It's better to plan with the addition of knowing that God is going to change and move things and to go with the flow when he does. But I had this idea, of this idea of marriage and this idea of this perfect wife and this idea of a perfect life and a perfect marriage. And I started thinking, what if she's not it? And it scared me. I freaked out. I almost bounced on the marriage. I was like, I don't know if you actually knew that at the time, did you? I did. I almost didn't marry you. I was freaking out. because I was terrified to not be in the will of God. I've messed up so much in my life. I've done so many bad things. I've ignored God on so many fronts when I was supposed to obey him. I didn't want this one to be another one, because when I enter into this is marriage. And so I got absolutely terrified of the idea of not walking in God's will for me. So once I started thinking about it, I dismissed all the good things God showed me that I believed that he showed me about her. And I thought about all the things that my perfect wife was supposed to have. Not fleshly, just perfect. And my idea of a perfect marriage. And it's not even that she didn't meet them, just what if there was somebody better? What if there's somebody that was more loving, more Christian, more willing, more going to mold to my every whim? Again, this is part of the problem, is in this idea that Disney sells us. It's not about the other person, it's about us. It's selfish. It's completely about me, my wants, my thoughts, my desires, my fulfillments, and it doesn't matter or give any thought to the other person. It's all about me. But that's what I thought, is there someone out there better for me? And if so, then Stephanie must not be my one true love. In that moment, which I'm going to fix that right away. I said in this. In that moment, when I was confused and full of doubt and I didn't know what to do, I don't like the way I wrote. Again, mind you, I wrote this at 4 a.m, or I was still writing at 4 a.m, so some of this doesn't fully make sense right here. I don't know why I wrote that. But in that moment, I was so confused and full of doubt and I didn't know what to do. All right, it does make sense. I just read it wrong. While I was at work, I was working at Calvary at the time at their coffee shop, and one of the ladies that worked there, her name was Kylene. She was an older lady, and she was the coordinator for weddings, and she still is, I believe. Super sweet lady. I was super cool with her. We were pretty close, and just a good, wholesome human being, a good person. I loved her. I still love her if I see her. Like, she's an awesome person. But she came into the coffee shop, and we were dead. And she asked how I was doing, how the wedding plannings were coming out, the plans were coming along, how the engagement was going, how Stephanie was. And and so we sat down and we talked. And I told her everything that I'm telling you guys. Like, I'm scared. What if she's not the one for me? What if all of this stuff that's in my mind is just deceptive? I marry her and then our marriage ends up being a fluke, or, I marry her and then my true love actually shows up and now I'm already married. That was a real fear for me. Like, what if I marry her and then my true love shows up? What do I do? I can't just ditch my wife for my now true love. And I was genuinely freaking out. While we were talking and I was explaining my concerns to her, with great wisdom, Kylene slightly leaned in and she said, Walter, you need to decide whether or not you choose to commit to her. Because the moment you say I do, she becomes God's will for your life. That was my fear. What? Because in my mind, God's will is the perfect person for me, right? It's that one that God molded for me. And that person is going to be perfect for me. Right? Do we all have that desire? Let's be honest. Yeah, we do, because we're all stupid and we all bought the lie. We all bit into the apple because it sounds good. There is nothing that sounds bad about that. It sounds excellent. Like, and if God is God, why wouldn't he build me this perfect person? Well, because it's not about you. That's we always don't. We never think about that part, but. And so while I was telling her, like, I'm just afraid I'm not going to be in God's will for my life, and that I'm going to marry her, and then it turns out that the person that God made for me is going to show up, and I'm going to have ruined that. And again, with wisdom, she just leaned in slightly with a smile and says, Walter, if you choose to commit to her, she will become God's will for you. And that just blew me away because she wasn't wrong. The moment you say I do, that is now God's will for your life. That's where Disney got it horribly wrong. Disney makes love out to be this feeling, this gesture, this not even a reaction, just this bubbly sensation that takes place inside. And that's not what love is. It was in that moment that I realized my life is not a Disney motion picture. And this idea of the one true love doesn't exist. Marriage isn't contingent on finding that perfect person. Rather, it's contingent on whether or not you're willing to commit to the person you claim to love. No matter who you invest in, perfection is not on the table. You have to decide whether or not you're willing to love them past their flaws. And you have to decide whether or not they're worth committing to. I mentioned people being imperfect. I mentioned sin and the corruption of the flesh. I didn't, really dig into that because I felt like it was pretty self-explanatory. But for the sake of the lecture, I'm going to. Everybody's a sinner. You're going to find something wrong with everybody. There will always be some sort of red flag that pops up. There's always going to be something that doesn't fit your idea. There's always going to be something that even makes you uncomfortable. We have to decide whether or not those uncomfortabilities, and those red flags, and those, what we call, red flags, if they're worth overlooking for the sake of love. Are those little... What up? We started a little early today. There's, if you want to, in that white binder, there's the chapter.
This is a... This one to be for the
white binder. Huh? Yeah. The white binder. You'll see it. It's, there should be 4 pages, 3 pages. Yep. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's it. Technically 4 pages long-ish. It's a few pages. But when we enter into marriage, it's a decision. It's a decision of commitment. And that's something that our culture lacks in a major way. Again, we bought the lie that it's this feeling that we have to indulge in. It's this feeling that we have to seek out. It's this feeling that we have to search for. And we'll know it when we see it. And it'll be known by the buildup of emotion, this buildup of sensation about this person, how they make us feel. That's scary. That's scary because multiple people can make you feel excited. Even after you get married, I meet people and sometimes I meet them and I'm like, wow, that's an exciting person. I meet lots of exciting people. It doesn't mean that I missed my shot at love. I chose my shot at love. I think I picked great. I picked excellent. I really don't think there's anybody out there better for me. Now, what would happen if my wife passed away? That's actually something we've talked about a lot in the past. Or if I passed away. And we both say I'd probably never marry again. But I'll be honest, I would. I'll probably marry again because I don't want to be alone. I don't like being alone. Sorry, babe, I love you. But the hope is I die before you. So, that's just the reality, And honestly, if I died before her, I hope she wouldn't spend her life alone either. She's beautiful. She's smart. And I think that, she does, I wouldn't want her to be alone. I'd want her to find somebody who's going to love her, even maybe better than I could, Not when we're married, though. But, and, the reality is that idea of that one true love absolutely demolishes that. Well, life happens sometimes. Things happen. People die. And again, if your one true love dies off, then your hope for love dies with that person. But again, that's only if love is based on Disney's idea of this influx of feeling and emotion. So many are captivated by the idea of love. Most people don't really know what love is, though. Biblically, there are as many as 8 different words that the Greek language uses for love. But there's one in particular that stands out, and it's agape. Agape isn't a word that describes feeling or emotion, but it's a verb better described as sacrificial love. The idea behind the word is that it's selfless. It puts emphasis on the other person and is willing to take loss that the other person might gain. Like commitment is a decision, so too love is a decision. Good old Disney didn't just push the idea of a one true love, they also pushed the idea that love is based on feeling. The issue with this idea is that feelings are fluid. They change with every circumstance. Love, on the other hand, is action. It's not based in feeling, but in choice. When 2 people get married, they have to make a daily choice to love the other person. Some days are easier than others, and some days feel impossible. But you choose to honor your vow. You choose to give them the best of what you have to offer, not for anything you might get out of it, but simply because it's the will of God for your life, and that your love for your wife, that you're to love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. The cold hard truth about love is it's hard work. It doesn't just happen. You don't wake up one morning and then out of nowhere, you just fall in love. You learn to love people. I'm a good example of that because I'm not an easily lovable person. I'm not. There's two types of people in this world. Now we'll say three, concerning my life. People that love me and people that hate me. The people that love me are in. The people that hate me, if they get to know me, they learn to love me. Or they never get to know me, they stay hating me. It's always, my whole life, it's always been that way. It's always going to be that way. And it's all right. I'm cool with that. It's part of my personality. You're either down with me all the way at the beginning, you don't like me, you get to know me, you learn to love me, or you just stay not liking me because you never got to know me. But to like me takes work. It takes getting to know who I really am, knowing why I think the way I think, knowing why my personality is the way it is, knowing why I do the things I do. Because a lot of the things I do don't make sense to people. I get them, that's why I do them. And when people get to know me, they understand why I do the things I do also. Again, same thing with the church. Not everybody understands why I operate the way I do as a pastor. But if they sit down and talk to me, they'll say, oh, I get it. If they don't, they just say, well, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing this wrong. You should be doing this, that, this. And they give me all their 152 ideas. And I'm like, well, why don't you just be the pastor then and show me how it's done? I don't know what to do. Well, then shut up. I don't know what to do either, but I do know enough to know that God is calling me in this direction. And I'm doing them for reasons that I have experienced and understand in the church. And don't know why I got into the church. But it's the same thing with marriage. You learn to love your spouse. You don't just love them. As wonderful as my wife is, you guys have met her. She's just an incredible person. It's not always easy to love her. It's hard sometimes. You know why it's hard? Because she's a human. Contrary to what you might think, she does have faults. She does sin. I'll give you a great example. Sorry, babe. She hid the 3-ring hole puncher from me. And so at 4:30 in the morning, I'm trying to go to bed because I'm tired. I mean, I'm nodding out of the computer like I felt like I was on drugs. And so I'm like, I just need to go to bed, but I can't go to bed till I find that stupid hole puncher. So I go and wake her up. Because I've pulled everything out of the drawers. It's always been on this table next to our TV forever. So I look and it's not there. So I'm like, okay, I looked wrong. So I looked again, it's not there. So I grab my flashlight just to make sure. I look again, it's not there. So I open the drawer, it's not there. I open the cabinet, it's not there. I look under the thing, it's not there. I pull out where my soundboard is sitting, I pull all that stuff out. It's not there. So then I'm angry. So I go upstairs and I wake her up. And I felt bad, sorry, babe. But I did. But where's the hole puncher? It's under the cricket. I already looked under the cricket. Well, that's where it is. Pull everything out again, but angrily this time. And I'm just bugged. I'm like, why did she move the stupid thing? It was so good where it was. It was just perfect. And she says that to her, is that where you found it? So I still think it's a lie. It's witchcraft because I pulled everything out. I pulled everything out. And it wasn't there. So I don't know how she stuck it, but it was there. Well, I went to bed frustrated. Yeah, it was still bad. It just wasn't nighttime anymore. The sun was already coming up. And so before, I feel bad because she's still kind of awake. So I kiss her and tell her, I'm sorry I got mad at you. I get it. Like, it's just, she puts things away because she cares and she wants things to look good. I just wish she would tell me when she puts stuff away because I never can find anything she puts away, ever. But, ever, as I'm dead serious, ever. If she puts it away, I will never find it. Even if it's sitting in, like, the most obvious spot. If she touched it, I'll never find it. It's part of our marriage. So, for the most part, I've learned not to get angry, except when it's 4:30 in the morning, then I got really frustrated. But I'm sitting there thinking of all this stuff I just wrote, and I'm like, I should just love my wife. I should not be angry. I am angry. But Lord, I need to just chill out, and I need to choose to love her in spite of how I feel right now. Now, for you guys, it probably sounds stupid. We've been married for 8 years. So when something stupid and small happens over a period of 8 years, those little things can be really frustrating. Those little things can be the difference between a massive fight or just dusting it off and nothing happening. Now, it didn't turn into a massive fight. I said, no, I'm not. Now, it didn't turn into a massive fight because it wasn't worth the fight. But doesn't mean I wasn't mad, and it didn't mean that the enemy wasn't poking. Most people can't look past that. Most people don't see the enemy attacking. Most people don't see, and they'll just let loose. And I'll share with you an example. One time she put away the dog leashes, and I'm not dogging my wife. This is just part of her personality. She likes to put things away, which I'm cool with. She just doesn't remember half the time where she puts stuff when she puts it away. And it's okay. Like, I try to look past it because I know she's doing it out of the good of her heart because she wants things to be clean. But she put the dog leashes away. Now, you guys have been to my house, so when you walk into my laundry room that connects the garage and the kitchen, there's the dryer and the washer. And then there's this shelf up here. Okay, the dog leashes have always been right here. Forever, as long as we've had them. Sometimes they get moved to this other bucket right here. But that's it. They're never anywhere else, ever, as long as those dogs have been alive. So one day I get home from work and she's at work. This is before Ezekiel was born. The boys are at their dad's. And I'm like, the poor dogs haven't walked in like a week or two. So like, I'm going to take them for a walk. And, I'll have them walked before she gets home and then we'll go have dinner. So I go to grab the leash and, it's not in the bucket. It's all right. The last time we walked them, we must have put them in this other bucket. It's not in that bucket either. So I just put it back and maybe I looked wrong. If it's a bucket, you can't really look wrong, but pull both buckets down. Okay, well, so start looking all over the top of that shelf. It's not a big shelf. It's not there. So I start searching all the cabinets in the house. And I can't find the leashes. Now, mind you, I was much younger in our marriage and much younger in my faith and much less patient. And I decided she moved the leashes. Now, if you know me, I am absolutely what you would call I'm anal about putting things in certain places. Now, I do have my moments where I put things in different places, but it's rare. It does happen. I do it sometimes. By and far, I know where everything I have is. I don't care how big of a mess something might look. I know where everything is. We help him. Did he lock himself in the bathroom or something? But I know where everything is. Everything. You might look at that and be like, oh my goodness, your life is in shambles. No, I can point out every paper, every pen, and that's messed up, but that's how my brain works. I can see a mess, and if it's mine, everything's perfect. And if I clean it up, I know where everything is. When she moves things, she doesn't tell me where she puts them, or she doesn't even remember where she puts them. She just puts them somewhere and she gets in this autopilot and just doesn't remember. And so I'm like, I know she moved the leashes because these are the only two places I would ever put these leashes. They would never go anywhere else. Because when I get them, I pull them down, put them on the dogs, walk them, put the dogs out, put the leashes back. Again, with me, routine is a big deal. It's just, I can't find the leashes. I'm looking, about 45 minutes passes. I'm not even upset. I'm livid. I'm actually playing in my mind how we're going to fight tonight. This is our first year of marriage. In my mind, I said, when she gets home, I'm going to lose it on her. I'm sick of her moving things and not telling me where. It's so frustrating. I was like, when she gets home, I'm going to make sure she never does it again. We're going to have it out, and I'm going to ruin her night. I'm dead serious. I was going to ruin her night. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm talking to God about it. I'm like, no, Lord, it's time. Something needs to change about this. I'm sick of this. Every time she touches our stuff, it disappears. And the worst part isn't even that it disappears. It's when I ask her where it's at. She says, I don't know. You have no idea. And I was done. I was like, no, we're done. This is never going to happen again. I'm going to make sure of it. So as we're waiting, I've told you guys before, I'm a chess player. So I'm playing every move in my head. Every step, every word, every possible direction it could go. I'm playing what I'm going to say, 10 different ways she might respond. And my responses for all 10 of those. And my responses for all. And I'm 30 minutes, I'm playing this out. And then I hear God talking softly, why don't you just choose to love your wife? She put it away out of the goodness of her heart. And I'm sure her intention wasn't to make you mad. And so I'm just fighting with myself because I'm tired of not being able to find my stuff. And again, I know that she's not doing it on purpose, but I feel like it because we talked about it over and over and over. And so she gets home, she walks in, I hug her and I kiss her and I tell her I love her. And I say nothing. We just chill for 10 or 15 minutes and then I say, babe, where are the dog leashes? She says, oh, they're up in one of the buckets. So they're not there. I love you. She says, then I don't know. We're done. So I just smiled. I said, all right. You sure you didn't move them? She said, no, I didn't move them. You sure, babe? No, I didn't move them. She starts helping me look. She says, oh yeah, I put them over here. And I can't remember where she pulled them out of. In that moment, again, I had several choices. Beat my wife verbally, metaphorically and verbally over the head and beat her face in and make sure she never forgets where she put something again, or love my wife, look past the stupid little flaw. It's a flaw. For me, it's a flaw. For her, it's just her. She's just cleaning. Like, they're stupid leashes. Why should she care and remember where they're at? Like, it's not like it's a credit card or, the keys to our vehicle. They're dog leashes. That's not the most important thing in her mind right now. So it's like, I chose to love my wife. It's a choice. It's an action. It's not a feeling. Sometimes you're not going to want to love your counterpart. Now, I'm speaking out of my experience. My wife's a great person. Don't let that be anybody's view of her. Like, she's an incredible person. There's like 0.00001% of our marriage. Little things like that. I'm sure if you talk to her, like, I'm probably annoying as crap. Like, I can't even imagine that poor woman, like, for you that know me just even a little bit, like, imagine having to live with me, So, like, I've got problems too, and I don't know what my problems are because I do it, in my mind, everything I do is right. It's why I do it the way I do it, Like, if I thought it was wrong, I wouldn't do it my way. Now, for her, they're probably annoying. There's things that I do that probably bug the living daylights out of her. And she's told me things before I don't remember, like, I throw my underwear or my socks on the floor, and I don't care. My hamper's right there, but I'll just throw them right there. No, I still do that. Sorry. It's my side of the bed. If I want underwear on the floor, my underwear. But, but I know it bugs her, and I try not to do that. But then, I'll tell you why I do that. Because when I go downstairs and I pull my clean clothes out, I bring them in, I bring them up with every intention of folding them. But then I get upstairs, I'm like, I don't want to fold these. So I just leave them in the hamper clean. I can't throw my dirty clothes in the clean hamper, so I just throw them next to the hamper so that when I do pull those clean clothes out, then I can put the dirty ones in. I'm not saying my logic is right. I'm just saying, like, I'm busy and I don't want to spend 20 minutes folding clothes. And I should, but because I know it bugs her, but I don't mean to do it. And I try not to do things that I know bug her because, well, love is an action. And you're ever changing as a human being. Now for her, she works hard at not moving things and, especially if it's something that I use often or if it's important, hey, I moved this. Because she loves me, because she knows what bothers me, she knows what hurts me. Vice versa, if I know something hurts her, I'll make it a point to not do it. I'll try. Again, the dirty clothes thing, I'm working on that. Folding clothes is so hard. Ugh, it's evil. I don't mind the washing and this and that, but when you get upstairs and they're just there and but sorry. Disney sold us this lie, though, of love being this emotion, this feeling, this idea that doesn't exist. Where am I here? It says you don't wake up one morning and then out of nowhere you just fall in love. Our English has a good word for that. It's called lust or infatuation. Many people are drawn away by their lusts and infatuations. Too often a person will get caught up with infatuation and they'll mistake it for love. The problem with infatuation is that it isn't rooted in commitment, rather it's rooted in lust. And when you've had your fill of lust, you begin to look at the person as an object that no longer holds the value that you desire. So you're off to the next suitor. If you've ever seen a good marriage, realize they're not a product of chance. Good marriages don't just happen, they're made. It starts with a decision to commit, and it continues with making that decision every single day, regardless of how you feel. I suppose we can say the summation of true love between two people isn't based on how the other person makes you feel, but true love is based on the commitment that someone is willing to offer up and live out. In essence, commitment is true love in action. A fair question that you might be asking yourself at this point is, how will I know my somebody when I meet them? The answer is you likely won't. The person that's best fit for you is often the person that's not even on your radar. If your hope is to attain God's best for your life, then you got to stop looking at your own or through your own lenses. You have to learn to look through God's lenses. In the last chapter, we mentioned that God doesn't look like man looks. Man looks at the outward appearance, whereas God looks at the heart. When considering a potential spouse, it's easy to get caught up in the Disney fairy tale, especially when someone looks at a Disney prince or princess or Prince Charming. But we must be equipped to look past the outward appearance and peer into the character of a person. We must decide whether or not the person we're considering for marriage is someone that we're willing to sacrifice for. Or more importantly, are they someone that we're willing to commit to? If the answer is yes, then you may have found God's will for your life concerning marriage. And at the end here, these were things that I had jotted down that I was supposed to delete. You can cross those out. But I think I'm going to add more to this chapter, and when I do, I'll give it to you guys. I think there's more things in there that I wanted to put in. I hit the essence of everything I wanted to say, but I still think there's some things that I want to put in there, and I'll give you those when I get them updated. I absolutely stand by this, and this is as biblical as it gets. Marriage, love, they are commitments. It is a choice that you make. Again, I wake up every day and I choose to love my wife. One of the things that she loves that I do that I don't mind doing, but I'm like, is making her coffee. It's not that I don't want to. I'm just like, it's early and I don't want to mess with that machine. But I do it every day. I won't do it most every day because I know she likes it. I know that she appreciates it. So I do it. It's not even hard. It's just like the thought of it when I get up and I'm tired. I'm like, coffee. I know you think I'd be the opposite, but it's not for me, so it sounds horrible. If it was for me, I'd probably be like, yeah. But it's not hard to make. It's not anything. It's just I don't feel like making it. But I usually don't tell her that. But sorry, I've told her that once or twice. But I make it for her because I know she likes it and she enjoys it. Same with breakfast or her lunch. When she goes to work, I make her lunch. I usually pack it the night before. I wake up and I like to take my wife to work so she doesn't have to, they make her walk from these far distances, and I don't like it. When she parks at Press, they have to walk from these long distances, and it bugs me. Now, it's not that I get this great thrill and joy of, having to get her lunch ready or taking her to work or picking her up. It's because I love her and I want to. And one of the best ways I can show her was so funny.
I don't know.
Vato Loco must be out of his mind.
I know.
But I want to stick my speaker out there and blast it towards him. Nah, that's not Christian, is it? But, no, I should ask him to see if he can turn it down a little bit. But it's all right. Let him bump his music. But, but it's a choice, honestly, every day, guys, to get up and do the things you don't necessarily feel like doing because it's the right thing to do, because it's going to be reciprocated by the other person. That's something that our culture has lost. When you see a marriage failing, it's often void of these principles. It's often void of these realities. When you have two people who are willing to serve each other and to commit to each other regardless, you're going to find that you're watching a good marriage being built. The commitment part is a really big factor in marriage. Because here's a reality. When you get married, it's very likely that you'll come across somebody who's attractive, who's exciting, who's maybe even make you wonder, did I marry the wrong person? The answer is no, you didn't marry the wrong person. You committed to the person that you loved, and you hold and honor that commitment because it's honorable and the right thing to do before God. There isn't a one and only. The person you commit to is the one and only. Between the Mexican music and my son, it's a circus up in this place. But the right person is the person that you choose to commit to. It really is. And if the person that you love and you care about so much, but you can't commit to them, then don't. God will bring somebody else that's suitable for you. I've said this before and I stand on this. You can fall in love with anybody. You just have to be willing to open yourself up to that person. Anybody. As long as they're willing to put the work into. Any two people could fall in love. Rather, any two people could choose to love and commit to each other and have a good relationship. But that said, Father, thank you for being God and for this chapter and for this time. I pray that you help us, Lord. Help us to hear your voice and to know you as you call to us and to lead us into what it is that you have for us, Lord. Help us to look through your lenses, to not look through our own eyes and through our own wisdoms, and help us to look through yours. And may your word be the grounding for our choice of a suitor, Lord, for these young people that are here. I pray, Father, that you would give them wisdom in their choices, that you'd give them understanding, and Lord, that you would bring somebody to them that would feel many of those desires that their hearts have for marriage. We just love you and thank you, Father, for being God. In Jesus' name, amen.